So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to talk about the ROI of competitive compensation. I know you all just went boring, but I'm going to try to make this fun. Okay? So so what we're going to talk about today is I want you to understand that maintaining a market-based labor budget is not a luxury. It's a necessity. Okay? I also want you to know how to quantify the ROI of market-based budgeting. We're going to talk about a real-world case study, and I want you to learn how to present this information to your C-suite. So let's talk about, let me set the stage for you, okay? Last year, the market moved about 3%. I think most of you probably knew that. We recommended that you put together a budget, a labor budget of about 4%. That was our recommendation. Our recommendation was also, if you have lots of promotions, maybe to add an extra percent to that. Now, let me argue this point. Don't let the board or your C-suite tell you what you need. You run your labor budget, and then you tell them what you need to stay competitive in the market. Let me argue that point, okay? Does anybody have big heartburn over that? Just so you know, I do reward participation. Okay? What did you, oh, you said something. Here you go. Okay, I reward participation. Okay, so you need to tell your C-suite and your board how much you need in order to remain competitive. So what does that mean? Well, that means you need to run your budget. And then what happens if they say to you, well, the market moved 3%. That's all we're going to give you. Has that ever happened to anybody in this room?
Or they at least question it.
Or they at least question it? And give me a little bit more.
Well, they at least push you on it a little bit.
And why do they push you on it? This question is the most important thing we're going to talk about today. Why do they push you on it?
Because they don't understand
They don't understand the market?
the labor market.
Okay.
They think they're saving money.
They think they're saving money? Okay. I'm not a forward on my team. I'm a guard. I'm a guard. Yeah, I'm a guard. Yeah. Okay. What else? Why do they not give you what you need? This is the most important part.
Because they don't feel like you deserve a seat at the table.
Because who said that? I don't have my glasses on. What did you
They
say?
don't think you deserve a seat at the table.
Okay.
They can't see how it pays for itself.
They can't see how it pays for itself. Who said that? You need a piece of candy.
I think they're just trying to increase their bottom line.
Increase their bottom line. You already got a piece of candy. So
I know.
They're really
Save
focused on
money.
the efficiency ratio.
okay.
In the fact that that is truly what is driving efficiency ratio.
Okay.
I'm not
I feel like they don't want to hear it from the department that doesn't bring in any money.
Oh. You know, I've had that happen. You know, HR is not known as a profit center. We're just not.
They think they know better than you do.
They think they know it better than you do. Okay? So there's a lot of reasons why they don't give you that 4%. And they tell you, well, the market's 3%, so that's what you're getting. Well, now let's talk about today how you can come back with data to combat that. Okay? So here's some reasons. Mergers, core conversions, change in management. Those are all reasons for not giving you the 4% that you need. Okay? You know, I will tell you that next week, because you signed up for this breakout session, I'm going to send to you a spreadsheet. You're going to see the information up here today, but you may want the spreadsheet for use later on, so you will all get that since you're signed up for this breakout session. Okay? So, how is every dollar that we save by under budgeting, okay, was actually costing us in an employee's annual salary and turnover. So let's talk about turnover for a minute. What are the statistics that you have all heard about turnover as far as the cost of turnover?
20% the annual salary.
How much?
20% the annual salary.
20%?
An additional
Oh,
20%.
okay, okay.
Salary plus 20, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, so 120%. Okay. And is that an average, or is that like for a certain job classification?
They always set on average.
Okay.
I
Okay.
heard entry level is
Lower.
20 to 30, and then the higher up you go, the bigger it is. And at the C-suite level, it can be up to 200%.
Correct.
Okay. What we typically see, and this is from the Saratoga Institute, because the Saratoga Institute has touted this statistic for 2 decades, okay? But typically, the total cost of turnover, now this isn't the hard costs, this is total costs. This includes soft costs, about 1 times the employee's annual salary, if they're entry level. Mid-level, about 1.5 times, and executives about 2 times, so about 200%. That's the statistic that we typically see, and when I saw it was from the Saratoga Institute. So let's think about that. If it's going to cost you 200% to replace somebody, wouldn't it be better just to put an extra percent in your labor budget rather than trying to pay for all that extra turnover costs? So if you could quantify these costs, and these costs are valid, is there any reason why your leadership team shouldn't say yes to that 4% budget rather than 3%? Is there any reason why they shouldn't do that?
Logically, no, but they're just not always logical.
Okay.
Let's see, that statistic's made up.
But if you could say to them, I've got data to show you this. Would you like another one? Okay. But if you can show data and show them how the data is valid, it's not made up, right? So let's discuss the cost of turnover, and we're going to look at the numbers, okay? So here's how investment in your labor pool, in your labor force, reinforces itself, okay? First, you have competitive merit increases. Theoretically, that lowers your turnover, that lowers unnecessary turnover. Then you have a higher engagement and morale. That leads to productivity gains. Then you have a budget. Is it a budget offset? And I would argue, here again, I'm going to do another argument. I would argue that it's not only a neutral, but it will save you money. And then you reinvest in talent strategies. Okay, so let's talk about these for just a moment. Competitive merit increases. So what you want to do is you want to start everybody out at a reasonable amount. And what we typically recommend, and this is a best practice in compensation, any compensation consultancy worth their salt is going to tell you this because it's a best practice, but we recommend that you bring everybody in at least an 85% comp ratio. Okay? You get your non-exempts to midpoint or 100% with 3 years of date and position or 3 years of experience. And you get your exempts and your executives to midpoint with 5 years of experience. Now, the one caveat to that is that they have at least decent performance. If they don't have decent performance, then that probably won't happen. Okay? So what does that mean? Well, that means that if you have people that are paid lower in the salary range, because you probably are going to have new employees, okay? So that's why you need more than just that 3%. If the market moves 3%, that's why you need 4% or more, because you're not only keeping people whole when the market moves, but you're also bringing those people that are low in their salary range closer to midpoint. So that's why we typically recommend a labor budget that's a little bit more than how the market moves. But on the other hand, if you have a lot of new employees and you have a lot of people that are paid fairly low in the salary range, you may need even more than 4%. You may need 4.5 or 4.9 or whatever to get those people to where they need to be, okay? So that means, that's why I started out by saying, I would argue the point that it's not in your best interest for the board or the C-suite to tell you what you need. It's in your best interest to say, I've ran the numbers, I've ran the budget, and this is what we need in order to remain competitive. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Theoretically, this should lower unnecessary turnover if your people are being paid competitive to market. Compensation is kind of like a three-legged stool. You've got base pay, you've got variable pay, and you've got benefits. Base pay is kind of like, you know Maslow's hierarchy of needs where you've got the triangle? Base pay is kind of like that base of the triangle where if you're not paying competitive to market on base pay, even though the other stuff is important, it's not quite as important as base pay. So that's the first thing you need to do, is pay competitive on base pay. And not just when you hire them, but you need to continue to pay them competitively. Okay? Higher engagement. If your employees feel valued, and in today's world, how much money you make, people equate that to value and how much they are valued. So theoretically, that your engagement and your morale should go up if people feel that they are paid competitive to what they should be paid for their responsibilities and their accountabilities. Okay? Productivity gains. Now this is an argument that you can make. Sometimes when people have a real high morale, they're not always that productive, because you can have a good time at work and not do anything, right? I'm sure none of you have employees like that. I know Christy has one employee like that. Has a great time at work, doesn't do anything, just goofs around. But, so you can have great morale and not do anything. But you know what? Most people, if they feel valued, if they feel like you really believe in them, they're gonna work as hard as they can for you and for the organization. And then you wanna make sure that you can prove that there's a budget offset to this, because that is what the CFO is gonna be looking at. That CFO is gonna be, does this pay for itself? And that's what we're going to go over today here in just a few minutes, is can this pay for itself? And then finally, you can take some of that money and reinvest it in talent strategies. Christy this morning talked about in her presentation that there's not as many jobs available for those younger folks. And so maybe instead of promoting people all the time, okay, maybe what you do is you give them the opportunity to learn something new. I used to work in a small manufacturing firm, and I had a gal that was an HR intern for me. And she had no desire of being in HR, but she needed an internship. So I talked to her. She didn't end up going into HR, okay? But she took those skills, and now she's a manager. She's a QA manager. And so she was able to take those skills that she learned from the HR department to become a better QA manager. So what we do can be, those tentacles can go into all different areas. It's not just HR. But if you're in management, what we do can be very, very valuable. And so that's why it's not necessarily just saying, well, I work in a bank or I work in a credit union, and I'm going to teach you how to be a better banker or a better credit union employee. But if you teach them other things, they may be able to take those things. And even if they don't stay in your organization, that's okay. Because they'll be a better employee, they'll make more money and just be a better member of society. Okay? Oops. So, I'm gonna go through the example, and this is kind of the math part. This is the spreadsheet you're gonna get from me. Okay? So what I did was I looked in so we have about 340, 350 clients, Christy, is that right? Okay, so I looked in there. I thought that was about right. And on average, our clients have 173 employees. That's the average. This is the average salary in our system for employees. Okay? So what I did was I took the turnover rate, and the 22.69 is the average turnover rate for all asset sizes for banks and credit unions. That's the average turnover rate. The average turnover rate for our clients, for BalancedComp's clients, is 18%. So that means that it's over 4.5% lower than the average. Now you'll notice that I use the cost of turnover as 50% of the salary. And why did I only use 50%? Because remember we talked about the total cost of turnover a little bit ago and how it was 1, 1.5, 2 times. Well, when I looked on the SHRM website, there was, this is from Gallup from last year, and this is the hard cost of turnover, not the total cost of turnover. So what that means is, what's the difference? Well, the hard cost of turnover is recruiter time. If you're posting these jobs on job boards and you got to pay for it, overtime, things that are very, very easy to quantify. So we're going to start with that. And then we're going to talk about some of the soft costs of turnover, and we're going to add that in. Now, I am absolutely 100% sure that you guys, when you get into this, will come up with other things than I've come up with. I'm 100% sure of that. But I wanted to give you a place to start. Okay? So, if we look at this, 173 employees, average salary, turnover costs, cost per salary, or turnover costs, okay? So if you have 173 employees, and you take that times 22.69 times the cost of turnover, this is the cost of turnover on average, okay? But if you replace that 22.69 with 18%, that's the only difference, okay? Then look how much it lowers it. It lowers it by several hundreds of thousands of dollars. So what does that mean? Why am I telling you this? Well, we would like to think that our clients are using our recommendations. So if they are providing their employees with 4% increases versus 3% increases, then you can see how it lowers the turnover, or how it can lower the turnover. We're going to do a case study at the end that Phil, who I want to be when I grow up, put together, and we're going to do some math on this. So you're all going to walk out of here with a case study. Okay? Now, let's talk about productivity. So here again, Gallup says that about 34% of employees are disengaged. Now there's different levels of disengagement. There's totally disengaged, and then there's slightly disengaged. I don't know if that makes a big difference to you. I don't think it does. When I was in HR, it didn't make a big difference to me. But they said that those employees that are disengaged, those 34% of employees that are disengaged, about 30% of their time is lost productivity. So you've got 34% of your employees and 30% of their time is lost productivity. That's according to Gallup. So let's talk about how you would monetize that. So I took the 173 employees times 30% of their time times their annual salary and times how many employees that affects or impacts. And I came up with $1.2 million. Okay? Now the benchmark, and let me tell you where I came up with this. We had a client who they came on board with us in 2020, I think it was 2021. Okay? And then their first full year with us was 2022. Okay? So, and they do an employee satisfaction survey every year So from 2022 to 2023, on the question, do you feel you're paid fairly? They had a 15% increase in their employees answering that positively. So from 2022 to 2023, it went up 15% in their salary survey. So that's where I came up with 15%, because 30% minus 15% is 15%. I had to have some benchmark. So that's where I came up with that. Yours could be more or less than 15%. And then I took that times the rate, the annual salary. I'm sorry, I'm standing right in your way. I apologize. And then that 34%. That comes to $643,000. So these are the kinds of soft numbers that are in that Saratoga Institute estimate that you don't get in that Gallup estimate from SHRM. And this is why I'm saying I am really, really convinced that you guys are going to come up with even more numbers than I've come up with on this. This is just stuff that I thought about that would be important to you all. Okay? Sure.
I was trying to let it go, but I
Okay, that's okay.
if you can go back a slide, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So when I look at the bottom, the current,
In the benchmark.
yes. So that's assuming everyone leaves the organization. That's assuming 100% turnover, right?
This is based on the 34 employees. Let's see. No, this is 22%, 22.69% turnover, and then this is that 18% turnover. Remember how I said the average is 22.69? Yeah. So that's what that's assuming. No, that's okay. I'm sorry? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so you know what? You guys each need a reward. You know that? You guys really do. I am so sorry.
No, it's not you, it was me.
No, I'm so sorry. So, yeah, no, that's how I'm getting those numbers.
So you're showing about a $300,000 return back to the organization by merely reducing the turnover about 3.69% in this case.
Right.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
Right. So this isn't chump change, you guys. This is real money. Now, give me 1 second. You may want some turnover. Some turnover is desirable. We're in HR, okay? Let's not let that leave this room. But we know that some turnover is desirable, right?
It's not turnover that you're afraid of, it's unpredicted turnover.
Unnecessary turnover. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, does that assume that 18% was all turnover due to compensation?
No, it's not. We're not making that assumption that all 18% was due to compensation. We're just looking at the average turnover, and the 22.69 is for the financial industry as a whole. The 18% is for our clients.
Voluntary and involuntary combined?
Yes. All turnover. You need something. You got something? Okay.
Rachel, you're using the average for our clients. Is there a built-in presumption that they're concerned about comp, they're probably concerned about employees overall?
You know, Christy, I can't imagine that someone would become our client if they weren't concerned about comp.
I think it's fair. I think it's a fair assumption.
I do.
If you had said, oh, and we took it down to 3%, I mean, then that would be like, oh, come on, guys. But this is only reducing it by 3.3.
Right. Well, 4.69.
Oh, okay, sorry, mine.
Okay. So, I mean, we're not talking about taking this down to 0, you guys. That's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about getting you down to where it's more reasonable, where you are eliminating as much unnecessary turnover as you can based on, compensation. Now, let's just say this, okay? If you're paid fairly and things don't always go your way at work, sometimes you go, well, they value me, and so you kind of go, okay. But if you're not paid fairly and things don't go your way at work, man, you're splitting. You're getting out of there, okay? Because you're like, this isn't worth it, okay? So that's why not only do you have to hire people competitively, but you have to maintain their competitiveness every year. That's why I'm arguing you should dictate or you should say, this is what I need to remain competitive. Not, oh, well, market moved 3%, so that's all I need.
I think the other side of this coin though too is making a conscious effort to not keep weight you don't need.
To not what?
Keep weight you don't need, non-performing individuals. And so that's the other critical part, because the more people you have in your number that are non-performing, because that's what I get back to, we talked about that efficiency ratios are struggling, the number of employees to asset size, right, are continuing to grow. So when you go, that's my struggle is if I go and I say this, I'm gonna tell you, I've got people that need to meet minimum standard, because if I wanna pay my high performers, which is what you're talking about, right?
I'm talking about anybody that's performing at least at a satisfactory level.
To pay for this, I know me, I'm sitting here going, boy, that'd be great to be able to add that on there if you guys are talking about labor budget, right? But I think for me, if I'm making it linear, I just want to say, I think we have individuals as well. Make sure that you're taking care of those that aren't producing, that are taking positions of individuals that are, and making sure that those expectations are there and paying them very well.
Virginia,
When they leave, let them go.
Are you saying that those that aren't performing where you need them to perform to give them the opportunity to be successful in another environment? Is that what you're talking about?
Right, exactly. But sometimes turnover is good because you do want them to transition out, and that's okay, because then you're going to spend wages on the truly those that are either meeting expectation or exceeding expectation. So, keeping your turnover to nil is not always a smart idea either, to your point. You're never going to. And if we're keeping those high performers, then you can use that labor budget that you're talking about to say, okay, I want to pay, but we've got really, really good people in the right seats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You brought up a great point. I actually came in contact with the credit union and they overcompensated their people compared to peers, like significantly overcompensated. And the challenge was culturally, nobody actually wanted to be there. They didn't actually enjoy working there, but they couldn't go to another credit union because it would be at least a 20% cut in pay. So they were just kind of stuck milling around.
With the individuals that you didn't want. And that's why
Exactly.
you've got to have minimum standards for production to make sure that you're also getting the return on the other side of that scenario.
So in a case like that, I would argue that that number that we see from Gallup, that 34%, was probably actually much higher. And that 30% of lost productivity that we saw from Gallup, that was probably also higher in that particular situation.
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally, they had somebody in IT who would show up to work and take naps.
Oh, how horrible.
Hated working there, just culturally not great, but again, just would not leave.
Because of the fact that they're so
Oh, how horrible.
unusual, we'll all agree. I don't think anybody in here is going, we overpaid. But I think that we do have to have a pay for performance philosophy, which is what you're speaking of.
Yes, yes. And just maintaining that competitive compensation. She had a question first, and then I'll get with you, Sandy. I'm sorry.
When I think about this, it almost seems like a two-edged sword for me, because you have your meets expectations employees.
Yep.
And, what is that tipping scale for paying them appropriately? Because you really want people to work very well, not just be that steady Eddie all the time.
that term.
Does that, they do enough to be considered meeting
Right.
expectations,
Right.
but they're not gonna do anything more. And they can get real comfortable if their their annual increases,
Meet the market. You keep them whole.
right, are higher,
Yeah.
than maybe they should be. I mean, I'm just thinking about, what you're saying about, and I don't wanna sound bad, because we do wanna pay everybody appropriately.
Yes.
But keep that, as much money as we can for those employees that are exceeding that, that expectation.
And that's also why it's important to look at that labor budget and say, this is what I need to remain competitive, rather than your board or your C-suite saying to you, this is what we're willing to give you, because you not only want to take people from 85% to 100% within a reasonable amount of time, But if you do want to send a strong pay for performance message, then you do want to increase that as well too. You're absolutely right. Sandy, you were next.
I was just gonna say, by doing that as well, and one of the reasons why I was trying to get BalancedComp in the first place is I felt like we were always being reactive instead of
Oh, okay.
in our compensation plan.
Yep.
We would have commercial lenders coming in and saying they're gonna leave because they can get more money
Yep.
over here, and we don't wanna lose them, so we're scrambling, trying to figure out what can we pay them so they'll stay.
Yeah, and
I don't think that's a good way to look at this.
And you know, Cindy, that's exactly what I'm trying to tell you is I think you should be proactive. That's the argument that I'm making to you, yeah, is absolutely that proactivity. Go ahead.
And then I'm going to be vulnerable for a minute here. I'm on the opposite side of the coin. I've never had to do a labor budget. I've worked for the same credit union 23 years.
Okay.
And our board always says, here's 5%, do with it as you want. So I don't know that I really need to do a labor budget because we've never had a reason to argue about it. I mean, I feel like they take very good care of our employees. So I'm just curious if anyone else is in the same
Do you
situation.
give everybody a 5% increase?
Everybody. But that's what they've allocated. Like, here's 5%. Now we always go over 3, so it's anywhere from 3 to 5 in that range.
I'm in the same boat. I've never been given a budget. Actually, last year was the first year I actually knew what our budget was. I'm only 2 years into my role, and we've never actually had a specific HR person either. So it's very new to our organization, and we're a smaller bank, so that's partly why. But yeah, kind of in the same boat there.
As your efficiency ratios start to squeeze,
Yeah.
which they are, then they're gonna start chewing on that
Yeah.
budget.
That's
And
what
they're
I'm
gonna start
thinking. Like,
chipping on it,
it's
right?
gonna
And
start-
so that's why what you're saying is critically important to get that budget and those numbers together because of that efficiency ratio. Now, when you talk about, when you have high morale and low accountability, you have entitlement. And that's what you're talking about, right? And so being able to have an appropriate budget, pay for performance philosophy and everything that works together and what that is. But back to your point, if you look at, if your turnover is above that number, 22%, even 25%, you're losing a fourth of your staff. And what that expense is, it's a very high number. And some organizations use big attrition to keep their salary budget down, right? Because if they've got open positions, then that salary budget isn't actually there, so they're
It's not
gaining.
being used.
And we were doing that for the last few years. For our salary budget, we dropped our turnover went from like 21, 22 to 15. Now my CFO is going, whoa. I see these comp expense. I'm like, oh, you're paying the comp expense because turnover dropped due to whatever reason, market pay, whatever that
Because
is.
you're using the money that's in the budget.
Because we're using it,
Yeah,
right? So
right.
that's the other side of the coin too, is when you start to use it, then I'm starting to get pushback from the CFO that's chipping away at that expense ratio.
You had a question.
Yes, so where we track turnover in the detail, X% left for compensation reasons, X% left change of career, back to school. We have all those details regardless if it's regrettable or not regrettable.
Right.
Do you recommend that we drill this down to the specific reason? For example, compensation, we know somebody left for a higher paying job. Or taking what I consider this to be a bigger picture look at it.
I could spend all day talking to you about that, and I have a limited amount of time. Let me just say that sometimes people will say, I've got a job where they'll pay me more, and that is a socially acceptable reason for leaving. And sometimes people will give you socially acceptable reasons for leaving and not tell you the real truth. So you may want to consider stay interviews to really find out if you would leave, why would you leave? Because I think stay interviews are going to tell you more than exit interviews. Deb? Oh.
I don't know who I was talking to. It was someone here at the conference, and they said that they use a third party to do like their stay interviews and other other types of like employee surveys and things like that, because it really does give the employee do you have something? Because I feel like your wheels are spinning like you're.
They are, but that's just who I am. But
That's okay.
I didn't want to
Okay.
interrupt. No, please.
No. Add to it, please. But yeah, I just think that as an idea to throw out to the group, like I think that idea of state interviews or even exit interviews, employee surveys, those types of things, just to consider using like a third party,
That's a good idea.
people would be a lot more honest, right? And I think Samuel wants to add.
Because if you do them yourself, they're going to go, oh, I'm not telling them. They're not going to keep it confidential. Go ahead, Samuel. I'm sorry.
I had a very successful CHRO tell me a very similar thing to what Virginia was saying, which is managing poor performers and high performers is both very easy. You cut the poor performers and you promote or reward the high performers. It's managing the mediocre performers that is the most difficult thing.
Yep,
And
that's the hardest.
what they said is their method of doing that is have competitive compensation, be very aggressive when it comes to their accountability conversations, and then always be recruiting. Going back to justifying it with your board, if you want to be successful in recruiting, you have to be competitive when it comes to compensation. And it's also, if they say the market's only moved 3%, well, guess what? If we're just at peer with everybody else, it doesn't actually move us further ahead, right? We're not more competitive than the shop down the street.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, you can ask.
I didn't hear, somebody said you didn't have a budget, you got 5%.
Sure.
Do you have low turnover? I thought so. It seemed like you would.
Very strong culture, very low turnover.
What
great
city is that?
team.
No, Phil, you can't go to work there.
Deborah's been to our office.
I mean, I mean,
100 employees.
I got her going now, I know.
I mean, Deborah's been to our office. She can attest to this. She's seen our team. It is a, from a culture perspective, it's a very phenomenal place.
Yeah.
And so I think it is a little bit different than most case scenarios, but I still think that our CEO is going to be retiring probably in the next 3 or 4 years, and our CLO. So, and they've both been there combined a total of 50 years. We have like 150 years together on our executive team.
Wow.
Wow.
That is going to be
I
huge.
mean, it's
when they
crazy.
leave.
And so I do expect things to change.
Yeah.
And I need to be forward thinking, and what is that
Yeah.
going to look like in the next few
Yeah.
years?
So let's talk about a couple more numbers, okay? In 2022, during the Great Resignation, people left for an average of about 14%. I'm just telling you that, okay? So let's look at the cost for new hires, okay? Current 173 employees times 22.69% turnover times the average salary times 0, okay? Benchmark, 173 employees times 18% and then times the average salary times 14%. That's how much, okay? So this is actually a negative impact of $318,000. Now, like I said, I'm just coming up with things that I thought would be important. You may come up with other things, okay? So now, let's talk about the cost of a one-time market correction. Okay, so off-cycle market correction increases to bring employee up to market. So let's say you've been giving those 3% increases for 3 years because that's what the market was, but you should have been giving 4% increases. Okay, well that's 1 year, 1% a year for 3 years, that's 3%. Now it could be more than that, but I'm trying to be conservative. Okay, I'm trying to give you a conservative number. So current 173 employees, times your turnover, times the average salary, times 0. This is how much, no, wait a minute. What did I,
Are they inverted?
Yes, they are, I'm sorry. So,
And sure, we're awake and we're looking at your slides.
yeah, do that in your minds, thank you. Benchmark is 173 employees times 18%, times the average salary times 14%. So what I'm saying is that your people are going to leave, right? If you're giving 3% increases versus 4% increases, they're going to leave. And so if you're having to hire people to replace them, my thought is you're going to have to replace them at 14% higher. okay? So if you don't give those market corrections, if you don't give a one-time market correction, if you haven't been doing those salary increases competitive to market, and then all of a sudden people are 3 or 4% behind, they're going to leave. So if you don't give that small 3% market correction, then you could end up paying 14% for the people that you have to hire to replace them. That's what this point is.
Right, if you think about it, and when you think about it, we deal, you guys in benefits all the time, right? Okay, you think about your benefit renewal, right? And all of us say, okay, we have trend. And we know that when we do cost sharing, we do a cost share, right? Regardless if our plan's going up or down or whatever it is, we know we do a percentage cost. We do a percentage increase. If you think about it from the way that you're doing your benefits, and you say, I'm gonna track the trend. So even if we have a good year, I'm gonna bump it 1 or 2%. For anticipation of what market's going to be. If you add that percent in every single year, a little bit over that, you're going to track faster with trend and think about, you have a bad year in health insurance, right? And all of a sudden you're like killing everybody with like a 9 or 10%. Are you following where I'm going?
Yeah.
So if you think about it in the same perspective of when you do your salary budget, then you just add on that little percent, you're not going to feel it, your CFO isn't going to feel it nearly as much if you just go ahead and add it on ahead of time of what that calculation is, because you're going to try to keep ahead of it anyway.
And I would argue, and I know I've said this is like the third time I've said this time, but I would also argue that it is not the employer's responsibility to keep pace with inflation. It is the employer's responsibility, however, to keep pace with, to pay competitively in the market. So back in 2022, when everybody was saying, well, inflation's 8% and I didn't get an 8% increase, you weren't required to compete with 8% because the market didn't move 8%. So when people say to you, well, my pay isn't keeping up with inflation, that may be true. But you are paying competitive to market. And that's when you want to make sure that your folks understand we're paying competitive to market. Yes.
When you look at the market, are you seeing, compared to like 2021, 2022 to now, like the rise in remote job availability affecting like the comp? Because I feel like in 2022, especially in our IT positions, like they were scooping up our IT people and paying them like $1 bazillion. And now they're not. And I also feel like with all the state like remote work laws like changing constantly, it's just like getting harder. Are you seeing that like making the market like they're not getting paid $1 bazillion anymore?
I can tell you what we've seen with our clients. When COVID hit, of course, remote work just skyrocketed. Okay, then in a couple of years, it kind of dipped way down, and now it's kind of come back up a little bit, and it's really started to kind of even out. Christy?
Dipped way down for IT means came like the rest of the market.
I'm sorry, I should have said that. Yes, you're right.
Way down meant like everything else.
It leveled off.
Sorry, but now it has leveled off in the last year or two. Sorry.
Easy to work in any state, and now like you can't just work in any state because of all the different state laws. Like you can't just work out anywhere anymore. So I think it's just, I didn't know if that was affecting comp as well.
It's always going to have an impact on it. It kind of depends on where you're at and how much it impacts you. We're starting to see a lot of clients like in the Midwest get calls from recruiters from the coast because they know that they can hire people a little less expensively from the Midwest.
And there's been lots of articles about big layoffs, so then it becomes softer, and then there's articles about AI and digital and those techie skills and how much they're needed, and then it starts to grow a little bit more. So, you know, they're divas, they're gonna continue to stay divas, treat them like divas.
That's funny. Okay. So here are the numbers. I've added all these numbers up, okay? 3 million to 2 million. Now this is just an example, but that 1% didn't come out to $1 million, right? It did not come out to that. So how are you going to do the ROI on this? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to add up all your savings, okay? And so the net return was $788,000. So what this means is the ROI, this means for every dollar you invested in that increased labor budget, right? How much will it save you? Well, the calculation is 624%. So what that means is for every dollar that you spent increasing your labor budget, it saved you $6.24. That's the ROI of this.
So even if you say, oh, but, those numbers, how wrong, you'd have to be 600% wrong. I mean, like, no matter how conservative you slice it, this is a great.
And I think I was pretty conservative in my numbers.
You can't, right.
You know, I think I was.
Yes,
I
you
mean,
are.
the increase to the labor budget was $126,000. That's what that 1% was. But yet it saved you $788,000. Phil?
Salted caramel chocolate. Oh, I'm sorry.
How about if I give you one of these? Because I'm out. I'm out. Sorry.
To your point, I'm open. I was expecting a square.
I'm out, dude. I'm
Oh,
out.
you're out.
How much is it worth to you?
A trip to Black's Beach? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. Woo!
I went fast, didn't I? But, no, the question
That's a whole
was,
other class.
can I recover? I don't think so. Where you put the money, though, is what's real important, right? So I think everybody here's kind of touched on that. And we want to go full Jack Welch and thrash the bottom 10, the bottom, but it's apportioning that to the proper performers.
Right, and that's what we were talking about earlier. Is if you take that money and reinvest it in your employees, then you should get even more ROI on that. Now that's a whole different set.
It's the later presentation.
Yeah.
Is that your presentation?
It might be salted caramel chocolate.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'd like to do, Phil, can we hand out the things? If you give me some, oh, I know you have. You're my hero. Give me some.
OCD kid on the side of the
No, more. Give me more. I'm gonna hand them out. Okay, so Phil did this. This is a case study that's on our website. As you all know, I want to be Phil when I grow up. So I aspire to do work like this, just so you guys know. Okay, this is the case study on our website. By the way, if any of you want to do a case study with us on this kind of thing, let us know. We would love to talk to you, interview you, and you would have the final say on what we can say. Okay, I don't want you to think that we're just going to publish a bunch of stuff about you that you don't know. Okay, so let's do the math on this. This current client has 292 employees. Now, all we're talking about right now is turnover. That's the only thing we're talking about on this one. Okay? Their average salary is $76,460 per year. Their labor budget difference from 3% to 4% is $223,265. Okay? So, I'm just giving you those numbers. Can you say them again? Yes. So they have 292 employees. Their average salary is $76,460 per year. And a 1% difference in their labor budget is $223,265. Okay? As you can see, in 2019, they had 49% turnover, right? Last year, they had 15% turnover. So we're going to do the ROI. We're going to do the ROI real quick, and all we're doing is turnover on this one. We're not even doing the other stuff that we've talked about. Okay? So if you do the math, you take 292, you take that times, in parentheses, 49% minus 15%. Okay? And then that's, wait a minute, 49% minus 15%, let's do that first. That's 34% in 5 years. Okay? You guys can see that, right? Okay. So if you take 292 employees times 34%, that gives you 100 employees. Okay? So that means that they've saved that many employees in 5 years. If you take 100 employees times their average annual salary, a 76,460, that's over $7.6 million that they have saved in turnover. Okay? Their labor budget for 5 years, remember I told you was 223,265 per year. So if you take that times 5, the cost was I'll just give you the numbers, 1,116,325. So that means the cost to go from 3% to 4% in 5 years was $1,116,325. Okay? So if you to get the ROI, this is just turnover. Okay? You take the cost that they saved in turnover, which was $7,646,000, and you divide that by $1,116,320. It's 1,116,325. Okay? So if you do the math on that, 684%. So that means for that $1 million, that $1.1 million that they spent, they saved $7 million. That's $6.84 that they have saved just in turnover. We're not even talking about all the other stuff that we've talked about today, you guys. Just talking turnover. Okay? This is how impactful this could be to your budgets. That's why the numbers don't lie. The data is the data. There are some hidden costs of turnover, okay? Or some hidden costs of playing it too safe, One is turnover. Replacement costs, low productivity. Disengagement, lower morale, reduced output. Pay compression, market competitiveness. So if you play it too safe, these are all hidden costs that can happen to you if you play it too safe, if your budget is too low. And these are things that we've talked about today. Okay. Also, you have legal risks, employer reputation, future budget issues, and opportunity costs. And you guys can read this. I'm not going to read it to you, but these are all hidden costs of playing it too safe, of having your budget be too low. So these will give you some ideas of when you say, what do I want to put in my budget? What do I want to calculate my ROI on? These are all things that you want to look at, because these are the things that you're going to want to monetize and put in that calculation. Okay? Because people are going to leave. I mean, if you're not paying them competitively, they're just going to leave. And I don't know about you guys, okay, but when I was in HR, there were a couple of times, it was before I got there, so I inherited it, I'll just admit to you, that I had to take care of some legal issues that happened before I got there. And I don't know if any of you have been under a Department of Labor certification where you have to report to the Department of Labor every quarter. You're smiling. Have you had to do this? Okay.
I'm sure that's a good time.
Oh, it's absolutely horrible when you have to report to the Department of Labor every quarter and they are double checking you and breathing down your neck to make sure that you are not treating people the way they shouldn't be treated. I mean, it is horrible to get a Department of Labor audit and you don't pass it. It's just horrible, okay? So just realize that these are all costs that you want to look at, and this will help you on your ROI, monetize that. Okay. So here's our recommendation, okay? Increase your labor budget from 3 to 4% or whatever you need, okay? We normally start with 4%, but you may need more of your total payroll to stay aligned with the market, to reduce turnover, increase engagement, and protect against the long-term costs of underpaying your employees. So at least 3 to 4%. What are the benefits of implementing this? Well, improved employee morale, loyalty, engagement. You also have a stronger employer reputation because you're known in the market as someone that values their employees and treats them fairly, even though we don't like to use that term all the time, equitably, let's say that. You have better internal equity pay and compliance, and it supports your strategic retention strategies if you eliminate unnecessary turnover. So, it's your time to shine. What questions do you have? We're right at 2:30, so we have like 1 minute.
Can we affirm that this is base wage? We're not talking variable pay. That's a whole nother person, that's a whole nother budget, correct?
This is base pay. Yes, this is base pay.
Yeah, just right, it is about the base, because you can't confuse it, and they're gonna wanna give you a 3 to 4% just on your variable pay is on top.
You can do that next time, Phil, variable pay. Thank you, guys. It was so fun. Thank you.